As soon as the door closed, Chloe exhaled. I'm sorry. Sarah's arms crossed. For what? For pulling away, Chloe said. I didn't know how to tell you. Tell me what? Sarah asked, her voice sharper than intended. Though this suddenly doesn't mean anything. No, Chloe said quickly. That it means too much. Sarah blinked. What? Chloe took a step closer. You scare the hell out of me, Sarah. Not because I don't want this, but because I do, and I haven't wanted something real in so long. I forgot how it's supposed to feel. Then why push me away? Sarah whispered. Because I don't know how to want something without ruining it. Sarah swallowed hard. Her voice shook when she spoke again. You're not ruining it, but you're making me feel like I'm the only one standing in this. Chloe's eyes filled with something like regret or guilt or both. You're not, she said. I didn't know how to keep this from taking over everything. I didn't want it to get messy. Sarah stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Newsflash, Chloe. It's already messy. It's already dangerous, but I'm still here. Chloe let out a breath like she'd been holding it for days. I'm terrified of losing this job, she admitted. Of us becoming gossip. Of screwing this up so badly it hurts more than it's worth. Sarah's fingers reached out, brushing Chloe's hand. Then let's be smart. Let's go slow. But don't shut me out. Chloe looked at her, really looked. You'd still want me even if we couldn't be open? I want you, Sarah said. Not the fantasy, not the game, you. Chloe's shoulders dropped slightly, like the weight she'd been carrying finally cracked. Okay, she whispered. Then we do it right, quiet, careful, Sarah nodded, together. And when they left that room, nothing had been solved. Nothing had been defined, but they'd chosen each other. And for now, that was enough. That night, Sarah sat on her couch, laptop on her legs, prepping final notes for the pitch. Her phone buzzed. Chloe, still thinking about you, honey. Sarah smiled, and this time she replied, come over. Chloe showed up 20 minutes after Sarah's message. She didn't knock like a stranger. She entered like she belonged there, soft smile on her lips, hair still slightly windblown from the night air. Sarah had changed into something casual, bare feet on the floor, wine half poured in a glass she forgot she was holding. Neither of them said anything right away. Chloe stepped inside, dropped her bag gently on the counter, and walked straight to her like she'd been doing it her whole life. The kiss wasn't rushed. It didn't need to be. It was slow, familiar now, like a continuation of something they'd been writing sentence by sentence, day by day, mistake by mistake. When they pulled apart, Chloe rested her forehead against Sarah's. Still thinking about me, honey? Sarah smiled, always. That night wasn't explosive. It was quiet, intimate, honest in a way neither of them had allowed themselves to be in years. Sarah curled against Chloe on the couch, her fingers tracing lazy lines across the other woman's wrist. They talked about nothing and everything. Sarah's fear of losing control. Chloe's instinct to run whenever something got too real. They fell asleep there, tangled, wine forgotten, tension unraveled. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find Chloe still asleep, one hand draped over her stomach, face buried in her shoulder. And for the first time in weeks, Sarah didn't wake up with panic in her chest. She woke up with a steady warmth that hadn't faded by the time she left for work. They arrived separately, like always, pretended to be just colleagues, like always. But something was different now. Sarah could feel it in the way Chloe lingered beside her longer at the coffee machine, in the way their conversations were threaded with an intimacy no one else could name. It was fragile, though, like glass. And on the day of the big pitch, that glass cracked. The presentation went well, exceptionally well. The client loved the concept, loved the execution, praised the narrative arc Sarah had created and the visuals Chloe had designed. It was one of those rare days when everything just worked. But after the meeting, as they gathered outside the boardroom, congratulating each other, the creative director made a joke. Something offhand, something careless. No wonder the deck was so cohesive, he said with a smirk. You two practically share a brain lately, or a bed. The air froze. Laughter trickled off awkwardly. Sarah's spine locked into place. Chloe's smile faltered. The project manager cleared her throat. Okay, back to work, everyone. The crowd dispersed. Sarah didn't move. Chloe didn't either. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Enough to say we're not okay. Enough to say someone. Notice, that night, Sarah didn't sleep. The joke wasn't proof. It wasn't an accusation, but it was a warning. Their secret was slipping. The next day, HR sent out an all-staff reminder email about workplace boundaries and relationships. General and personal, but the timing wasn't. Sarah stared at the screen, cold spreading through her limbs. At lunch, she pulled Chloe into the stairwell. Did you see the email? Yeah, Chloe said quietly. Do you think it's about us? I don't know, Chloe admitted. But I think people are talking. Sarah felt something inside her tighten. We were careful? We thought we were careful, Chloe said. But I kissed you in the hallway last week. We left together after drinks. We keep looking at each other like we are. Sarah finished. Chloe nodded. We can't keep this going if it's going to hurt your job or mine. So, what do we do? Sarah asked, voice cracking. Stop. Chloe looked at her long and hard. Do you want to? Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't because no, she didn't want to. Not even a little. But she also didn't want to lose the only place in her life where she felt in control. And the thing between them was starting to unravel that balance. That weekend, Sarah went quiet. She didn't call, didn't text. Chloe didn't either. The silence was unbearable. She kept checking her phone, hoping for some excuse, some spark. Nothing came. By Sunday evening, she was pacing her apartment, heart aching in a way that felt physical. She opened a blank note on her phone, typed I miss you, then deleted it. Started again. This is harder than I thought. Deleted that too. She couldn't do this halfway. On Monday, Chloe avoided her eyes. During meetings, she was cold, brief, purely professional. Sarah matched her energy out of spite and fear, but it burned. God, it burned. After the second meeting, Sarah walked past Chloe in the hallway, brushing her shoulder just slightly as she passed. Chloe didn't look back. Sarah spent the afternoon pretending to be fine. Around 5, she packed her things and left early, something she never did. She walked without direction, hands shoved deep in her coat pockets, teeth clenched. Against the wind. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to hurt this much. She found herself outside Chloe's apartment without remembering how she got there. She stood in front of the door, heart pounding like it wanted out of her chest. She knocked. Chloe opened, surprise. Sarah, I don't want to lose you, Sarah said, voice low. I don't care who saw or what they think. I don't care if it's messy. Chloe didn't let her finish. She pulled her inside, closed the door, and kissed her like the world was ending. And maybe in a way it was because after that kiss, there was no more pretending, no more space, no more silence. They didn't talk that night, not with words. Chloe kissed her like she'd been holding her breath for days, like Sarah was oxygen. Like every doubt and fear had been building into this moment, and the only way to survive was to close the distance. Sarah kissed her back with everything she had, with desperation and relief, and something rawer than she'd ever let herself feel. They didn't make it to the bedroom. The living room was as far as they got, tangled in each other on the couch, shedding. Layers of clothing between whispered moans and stifled gasps. There was no performance in it. No seduction for the sake of dominance. It was vulnerable and messy and impossibly tender. When Chloe touched her, it wasn't just to provoke a reaction. It was to memorize her, to hold her like she was precious, like she mattered. And Sarah, for the first time in longer than she could remember, didn't hold back. She didn't flinch, didn't doubt, didn't overthink. She let herself be wanted, and she let herself want back. They fell asleep tangled together. On the rug, still half-dressed, Sarah's hand resting lightly against Chloe's bare waist. She woke up first, just before sunrise, and stared at the soft outline of Chloe's face in the dim light. She looked peaceful, open, human in a way that had nothing to do with her confidence, or her charm, or her curated boldness. Sarah traced the line of closed jaw with her eyes and thought, God, I'm in trouble, because this wasn't just a crush anymore. Wasn't a passing thrill or a reckless mistake. It was something deeper, and maybe it had been from the start. Chloe stirred, blinking slowly. Are you watching me sleep, honey? Sarah smiled. Maybe. Chloe stretched, a quiet groan in her throat. Do I look dreamy? You look smug. Well, I did have a very satisfying night, Chloe murmured. Professionally, I mean that pitch. Incredible. Sarah laughed softly. You're unbearable. You love it. Chloe kissed her cheek, then stood. Come on. We both have to pretend to be normal in less than an hour. The mood lightened, but beneath the banter, there was tension. Gentler now, but present. They didn't talk about what this meant. They didn't define it. They didn't make promises. But something had shifted again. And this time, there was no way to go back. That week, they became something like addicts. They kept it secret. Yes, always careful, always professional in front of others. But in every spare second between meetings, in empty rooms and passing glances, they found each other. Chloe would whisper honey against Sarah's ear while brushing past her in the hallway. Sarah would leave handwritten notes on Chloe's desk. You drive me crazy, but somehow I still want you. One night, Sarah found herself backing Chloe into the supply closet after everyone had left, locking the door behind them and kissing her until her lipstick smeared. God, Chloe had whispered breathless, you're getting bold. You make me reckless, Sarah murmured. You like it? I love it. But while the passion burned brighter, so did the spotlight. More glances, more whispers. An email from HR subtly reminding everyone of the agency's dating policy. Another offhand comment from a coworker about how tight Sarah and Chloe had become. It was getting harder to hide. And Sarah, for the first time, started to feel the fear Chloe had talked about weeks before. What if they got caught? What if it cost them everything? But it wasn't just about consequences anymore. It was about risk, about choice, about whether they were brave enough to stop pretending. One afternoon during a campaign review, the tension cracked again. Chloe was presenting a new visual direction, bold, elegant, romantic. It's emotional, she said, pacing the room, pointer in hand. It's about craving not just something beautiful, but something meaningful, something intimate. Sarah felt those words hit her like a punch. The entire team was silent, focused. But Chloe's eyes flicked to her for a second. And in that second, Sarah knew this wasn't just about the campaign. Chloe was trying to say something without saying it. That night, Sarah stayed late. So did Chloe. They didn't plan it. They didn't speak until everyone else had left. And then slowly, Sarah walked into Chloe's office and closed the door. We can't keep doing this in the dark, she said. Chloe looked up. You want to tell them? I don't want to hide, Sarah clarified. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. Every day, every time I look at you, Chloe said cautious. Sarah, if we take this step, there's no undoing it. People will talk. We might get reassigned. The dynamic will change. I know, Sarah said. But I'd rather deal with that and keep pretending this doesn't matter because it does. You do? Chloe stared at her for a long moment. Are you sure? I've never been more sure about anything. Chloe crossed the room and kissed her softly. Then let's do it, she whispered. Let's stop hiding. Sarah smiled. Together. Always, honey. They didn't make an announcement. There were no declarations, no mass email, no dramatic scene in the office kitchen. But on Monday morning, Chloe walked into the building holding Sarah's hand. Simple, quiet, unmistakable. They released each other's fingers just before reaching the main work floor, but it didn't matter. Someone saw. Someone always saw. By noon, the entire agency buzzed like a stirred hive. There were no direct confrontations, no accusations, just the shift in air, the longer stares, the whispers that stopped when they entered a room. Sarah pretended not to notice. She dove into emails, into creative reviews, into deadlines. But she felt it every second. She felt her coworkers parsing her tone, analyzing her smiles, watching her every interaction with Chloe. And Chloe handled it like she always did, with unapologetic calm. She smiled when she wanted. She stood close when she wanted. And when someone asked, so, is it true? Chloe simply tilted her head and replied, if it is, does it change the work? That answer didn't stop the whispering, but it reminded people who they were dealing with. Sarah admired her for that. She envied it too, because as the week wore on, the pressure tightened around her like a noose. During a leadership meeting, the creative director cleared his throat and said, Sarah, Chloe, can I speak to you both for a moment? The office fell into an artificial silence as they followed him into his glass-walled office. The door clicked. Shut. You two know I respect the work, he said, not sitting. But the rumors are distracting people. They're disrupting the team's focus. Chloe folded her arms, then told the team to focus. I'm telling you to be discreet. His tone was sharp. Now, whatever you're doing outside these walls, keep it there. I don't care, but in here, you need to be neutral. No glances, no notes, no energy that can be read as personal. Sarah felt a cold wash on her chest. We haven't crossed any professional lines, she said. We've hit every deadline. Our campaigns are performing better than ever. And still, this is what people are watching. He replied, perception matters, Sarah. If someone files a complaint, if this escalates, I won't have much of a choice. Sarah stiffened. You'd separate us? I'd have to. Chloe stepped forward, calm but firm. We've done everything by the book. There are no policies against consenting relationships between peers. You know that. I also know optics can kill. Morale. He snapped. I'm not telling you to stop. I'm telling you to choose. Keep your private life private or prepare for professional adjustments. The conversation ended without resolution. Sarah returned to her desk shaken. Chloe passed her once that afternoon and didn't look her way. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. That night, they met in Sarah's apartment again, and this time, it wasn't about passion. It wasn't about kisses or hunger or laughter. It was about fear. They're going to make us pay for this, Sarah said, curled against Chloe on the couch. Maybe not officially, but they're going to find a way to punish us. Chloe didn't argue. We knew this might happen, did we? Sarah asked, voice trembling. Or did we just pretend we were too good to get caught? Chloe's eyes were tired but steady. We didn't get caught. We stepped into the light. Sarah shook her head. I don't want to lose what we've built at that place. Then don't, Chloe said simply. Don't give them a reason. They don't need a reason, Chloe, she whispered. They just need a story. Chloe pulled her close. Then we write a better one. And for the first time since the rumor storm started, Sarah believed her. The next morning, they adjusted. They didn't hide that they didn't offer. Their desks remained separate. Their interactions efficient. Their tone clipped when necessary. They played the game, but something had changed. People still stared, still whispered, but there was no longer anything to find. It drove the gossipers mad, and then came the project reshuffle. Sarah was called into a surprise meeting with HR. They commended her work and praised her leadership, but informed her she would now be working on a different client, unrelated to Chloe's projects. Purely logistical, they said. An opportunity to diversify talent. Sarah sat in silence for a long time after the meeting. When she told Chloe, Chloe's jaw clenched. They're splitting us up. Not officially, Sarah replied. But, yes, Chloe paced the room. They're scared of us. They should be, Sarah said softly. We're good together. Chloe looked at her. What do you want to do? Sarah didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window, at the skyline, at everything she thought she'd built, everything she was still trying to protect. I want to do the job, and I want to keep you. You don't have to choose, Chloe said. Then let's make sure they don't force me to. Sarah stood. We'll play their game for now, but I'm done being quiet. I love what we've made, and I'm not sorry for loving you. Chloe's eyes widened. She hadn't said it yet. Neither had Sarah, but there it was out in the open. Chloe stepped forward slowly. Say that again. Sarah's throat tightened. I'm not sorry for loving you. Chloe kissed her like she couldn't bear to wait a second longer. Like that single sentence had undone her because it had. Everything was different now. The love was no longer implied. It was real. And they were choosing each other in the face of risk, in the face of pressure, in the face of every quiet punishment the world had lined up for them. And still, Sarah whispered against her mouth, You still drive me insane. Chloe smiled. That's okay, honey. You love me anyway. Sarah hadn't planned on saying it that night. I'm not sorry for loving you. The words had escaped her before she could cage them, before she could weigh the risks and calculate the fallout like she did with every other decision in her life. But once they were out, she didn't want them back. She didn't regret it, not even for a second. Chloe hadn't said it back. Not exactly, but she didn't have to. The way she kissed Sarah after, the way her hands trembled against her skin, the way she whispered finally like she'd been waiting for this moment long before Sarah even admitted there was something between them. It said more than words could. They made love that night with a new kind of urgency. Not frantic, not desperate, but with a quiet reverence of two people who finally stopped running from the truth. It wasn't just lust anymore, it was need, it was choice. And it was terrifying. The next morning, everything looked the same, but Sarah wasn't the same. Neither was Chloe. They'd stopped hiding from each other, but they weren't naive. The agency had drawn its line. HR might not have said it outright, but the message was clear. Your love is inconvenient, and inconvenient things are moved, silenced, broken apart. Sarah stared at her screen, eyes on a campaign brief she could barely process. She wasn't thinking about the brand tone or the social rollout. She was thinking about how fast everything could fall apart. Her phone vibrated a Slack notification. From Chloe, can we meet? 8th floor, west stairwell. 3 p.m. Sarah typed confirmed. When she arrived, Chloe was already there, pacing. You look like you're about to quit, Sarah said softly. Chloe stopped. I might. Sarah's heart punched. What? I got a call, Chloe said. From a studio I used to work with in Paris. They're launching a new creative division in New York. They want me to lead it. Sarah stared. You're leaving? They want me to start in 2 weeks. And what do you want? Sarah asked. Chloe hesitated. I don't know. Yes, you do, Sarah said. You just don't want to say it out loud. I don't want to ask you to choose between your job and me. And I don't want you to walk away from everything we've built because of office politics, Sarah said, voice rising. We've worked our asses off here. Exactly, Chloe replied. And now we're being punished for falling in love. Sarah swallowed hard. So, what are you saying? Chloe's voice dropped. I'm saying we might be better off starting somewhere fresh, somewhere we can be ourselves. Sarah felt the ground shift under her feet. She had spent years anchoring herself to this job, to this company, to the image of control and excellence she had carefully constructed. And now Chloe was asking her to consider letting it go. You want me to leave with you? Sarah whispered. I want us to choose each other, Chloe said. But I also know what this place means to you. Sarah didn't answer. She left. She didn't speak to Chloe for the rest of the day. Her mind was chaos. Her body buzzed with adrenaline and fear. That night, she didn't go home. She walked for hours through side streets and avenues, past bars and bookstores and cafes that meant nothing to her. She kept thinking about her first day at the agency, how small and invisible she'd felt, how hard she'd worked to climb, to prove herself to be taken seriously. And now she was being asked to choose. But maybe the real question wasn't about choosing between Chloe and her career. Maybe it was about choosing between who she used to be and who she was now. The next morning, Sarah walked into the office. Early, she went straight to the creative director's office and asked to speak privately. I want to address the reshuffle, she said. I know why it happened. He blinked. Sarah, no. Let me finish. You don't have to say it, and I won't accuse you of anything formal. But we both know that being reassigned had less to do with performance and more to do with perception. My relationship has never interfered with my work, Sarah said. And I refuse to be punished for being a human being, for feeling something, for falling in love. He looked down, uncomfortable. What do you want me to do? Nothing, Sarah said. Because I'm done waiting for this place to recognize my value. You're quitting. She took a breath. Not yet, but I'm not staying in this silence. I've already made my decision. She left the office without waiting for a response. And later that day, she waited by the elevators until she saw Chloe coming around the corner. Sarah stepped into her path, grabbed her hand, and pulled her into the stairwell. Again. You said you wanted us to choose each other, Sarah said. So let's do it, Chloe blinked. You're serious? You take the job, Sarah said. You go to that studio and I'll be right there with you. Not because I'm running, but because I'm finally choosing something that scares me more than failure. Me? Chloe whispered. Us, Sarah corrected. We'll build something better. Chloe kissed her so hard, Sarah lost her footing, her breath, her certainty that any of this had ever been impossible. We're really doing this, Chloe said breathless. Sarah nodded. You and me, honey. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of who might be listening. The decision was made, irrevocable, defiant. Sarah had given her answer with clarity. She didn't know she was capable of yes. Yes to Chloe. Yes to change. Yes to the terrifying possibility that life could be more than calculated safety and slow suffocation. She had no plan beyond that, no perfect next step mapped out, no 5-year trajectory, just one truth. She was done shrinking herself for the comfort of others. She was done choosing silence over feeling. And she was done pretending her love for Chloe was anything but the most important thing in her life. 2 weeks later, Sarah closed her laptop. For the last time at the agency. Her desk was bare, files transferred, inbox archived. The goodbye was quiet, just the way she wanted. No farewell speeches, no performative hugs. Only Ava from accounting slipped her a folded note. Whatever you're walking toward, I hope it's bigger than what you're leaving behind. Sarah tucked it into her coat pocket without a word. Chloe had resigned a week before her, but they'd staggered. Their exits intentionally, no public overlap, no spectacle. Still, people knew, people talked, but none of it mattered anymore. The chapter was over. And what came next didn't scare Sarah as much as it used to. On their first morning without work, Sarah and Chloe lay tangled in bed, phone silenced, blinds half open to let the soft golden light pour across the sheets. It felt unreal, like the breath that comes after the plunge. "We're really out," Chloe said, her voice still with sleep. "We're really free." Sarah shifted closer, her fingers trailing down Chloe's spine. "It doesn't feel real yet." "What does it feel like?" "Like peace," Sarah whispered. "But also like we just jumped off a cliff with no parachute." Chloe laughed. "Good, that's how you know it's worth it." They spent that first week rebuilding themselves, sleeping in, walking the city like tourists in their own lives. Chloe took Sarah to bookstores she loved, to galleries she hadn't visited since college, to rooftops she used to escape to when she needed silence. Sarah taught Chloe how to cook something other than pasta and eggs. They kissed in public. They danced barefoot in Sarah's apartment when it rained. They started to dream out loud. "You think it's too risky?" Chloe asked one night as they shared a bottle of wine on the fire escape. "Starting our own studio." Sarah didn't flinch. "Everything about us has been risky. Look where it got us." "Burned, free," Sarah corrected, "and together." Chloe reached for her hand. "Then let's do it." They named it Honey Studio, half joke, half tribute. It started small. One client Chloe brought from Paris, one retainer Sarah secured through a contact in branding. But from the beginning, it felt different. They worked in Chloe's loft, turning the second bedroom into a chaotic creative nest. Whiteboards, sketches taped to the wall, Sarah's laptop always open, always humming. The work wasn't easy. Deadlines were brutal, budgets tight. There were nights they argued over tone and strategy. And who forgot to invoice the damn client again? But none of the fights ever left scars because under every disagreement was one uncheckable truth. They were building something together and not just a company, a life. One afternoon, Sarah sat at the desk editing a client deck when Chloe dropped. A folder beside her. "New pitch," she said. "Big one." "How big?" "Big enough to change everything. They want bold. They want fresh. They want intimate storytelling." Sarah blinked. "That's us." "Exactly." Chloe leaned in, brushing a kiss to her cheek. "Want to work late with me tonight, honey?" Sarah smirked. "Only if you promise to bribe me with takeout." Done. That night. They worked until nearly midnight, writing, designing, laughing, arguing over fonts. When the file was finally finished, Chloe collapsed onto the floor and pulled Sarah down beside her. "This is real," Chloe said. "I know, and it's ours." Sarah nodded, eyes glassy. "You remember the day you called me honey in that meeting?" Chloe laughed. "You looked like you were going to murder me." "I nearly did, but you didn't." "No." Sarah leaned in. "I fell for you instead," Chloe smiled. "You're still doing it." "What?" Looking at me like I'm everything. Sarah kissed her. "Because you are." They lay there in the quiet, heart steady, hands intertwined. No secrets, no shadows, no hiding. Just two women who had risked everything and somehow had found everything in return. The first crack came quietly. Not in their relationship, never in that, but in the world around what they were building. It was a Tuesday. Rain tapping at the windows, coffee cooling too fast on the desk, inbox full of revisions and demands, and one particularly cold email from the biggest client they'd landed at Honey Studio. "We've decided to pause the campaign." Due to internal restructuring, your contract is terminated effective immediately. Please forward final invoices by end of week. Sarah stared at the screen for a long time, fingers frozen. We just launched their teaser yesterday, she said aloud. Chloe looked up from a couch, tablet in her lap. What? Sarah turned the screen toward her. Chloe read it once, twice, then. Her jaw clenched. They cut us just like that? No warning. None. They loved the work. Doesn't matter, Sarah said, voice hollow. They don't care. And that was the part that stung. The way corporations could take something beautiful and strip it of worth in a single sentence. The way effort and heart didn't always equal stability. That week, things got tight. Financially, emotionally, they didn't panic. Not outwardly. But Sarah started waking up in the middle of the night with her heart pounding, and Chloe began double-checking. Every invoice twice, 3 times, like a missed zero could collapse everything. They downsized little luxuries. Takeout became grocery store pasta. Design subscriptions were canceled. The backup cloud drive shut off, but they never cut the studio. Never once considered walking away. We'll fix it, Chloe said one night. As they lay on the living room floor, surrounded by pitch drafts and unpaid bills. We've done harder things, Sarah nodded. But her throat was tight. You still believe in this? Chloe whispered. More than ever. And then 2 days later, a second blow. An old friend of Chloe's, a creative director from Paris, sent her a message. Just heard a rumor that Honey Studio's been dropped by Belrose. You okay? Sarah read the message and went cold. How does someone in France know about that already? Chloe exhaled. Word travels. Especially when someone wants it to. You think our old agency is behind it? Wouldn't be the first time someone burned a bridge after we left. They're trying to ruin our name. No, Chloe said, steel in her voice. They're just scared we're actually doing it. Sarah didn't respond because beneath the rage and fire in Chloe's voice, Sarah felt the weight of it. How fragile success was. How quickly a story could be rewritten if you didn't control the narrative. We need to fight back, she said finally, not with drama, with work. We remind people who we are. Chloe smiled. You mean who we've always been? Exactly. That night they didn't sleep. They redesigned their site, rewrote their brand language, created a new campaign targeting smaller local businesses, people who would see them, people who wouldn't play the same power games. They built a series of social posts explaining their mission, creative honesty, emotional storytelling, fearless authenticity. The first post read, "We believe the best stories are built with fire, trust, and a little sweetness. At Honey Studio, we don't sugarcoat. We create boldly, fiercely, together." The post went semi-viral. Not millions, but enough. Enough to draw attention, enough to make people feel. DMAs started coming in. Inquiries, tiny brands, local bookstores. Indie fashion labels, small businesses run by women, by queer folks, by artists tired of big agency ego and empty promises. Sarah took every call. Chloe built every deck. They worked until their eyes burned, but this time they didn't just survive. They grew slowly, honestly, with their name on the door and each other's fingerprints on every part of it. One night, Chloe stood behind Sarah as she finished uploading a set of final assets. She leaned down, pressed a kiss to the back of her neck, and whispered, "I'm proud of you." Sarah turned around, wrapping her arms around Chloe's waist. "I'm proud of us. This could have broken us." It didn't. You know why? Chloe asked. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Chloe kissed her cheek. "Because you never gave up on me?" Sarah smiled. "Because you never stopped calling me honey," Chloe grinned. "And I never will." They kissed long and slow and quiet. And in that silence, the kind that only exists between two people who fought for everything, Sarah realized something. The world could burn around them. Clients could disappear. Money could tighten. Doubt could knock. But as long as Chloe looked at her like this, as long as they kept choosing each other in the chaos, there was nothing. They couldn't rebuild. Love didn't protect you from pain, but it made surviving it worth something. 1 year later, Sarah stood in front of the Honey Studio sign mounted on the glass entrance of their new office. Real office, real address, not a loft, not a spare room, not a temporary co-working table squeezed between strangers. This was theirs. Brick walls, tall windows, a battered leather couch they found at a thrift store and refused to replace. There were plants. There were shelves stacked with sketches, mock-ups, books about design and copy and love. There was a corkboard full of sticky notes from past clients with messages like, "You saved our brand, and we finally feel seen." And there was Chloe barefoot, standing on a ladder, inside with a paint roller in one hand and a paint-streaked bandana in her hair. "You're staring at me again?" Chloe called without turning. Sarah smiled. "I like what I see. The paint you." Chloe looked over her shoulder. "Still always, God, you're such a sap now." "Only for you." Chloe laughed and climbed down. Her cheeks were flushed, her tank top speckled with white paint. She looked radiant, real, the kind of woman you fall in love with every day, even after she steals the last oat milk or forgets to charge her phone. Sarah stepped inside, wrapping her arms around her from behind. "Do you remember the first time I called you honey?" "Vividly, you looked like you wanted to die." "And now," Chloe turned, kissed her gently. "Now I call you that every chance I get. Still makes my stomach flip. Still makes mine warm." They kissed again, deeper this time. Not the kiss of people stealing a moment, but of two women who had built a life out of stolen moments until there was nothing left to steal, only share. After everything, the risks, the rumors, the losses, the rebuilding, this was what remained. And it was enough. More than enough. Later that day, they hosted their first open house. Friends, collaborators, former clients. The space buzzed with energy, with laughter, with people wandering from wall to wall, admiring the campaigns they'd created. Someone from a major lifestyle magazine walked in asking if they could do a feature on queer-led creative agencies shaking up the industry. Sarah was stunned. Chloe said yes without blinking. "Tell the real story," she said. "We built this because we weren't allowed to thrive in someone else's story. So we wrote our own." By sunset, everyone had gone. The lights were dimmed. The music was off. Sarah and Chloe sat together on the couch, sharing a bottle of wine, shoes off, legs curled into each other. Sarah rested her head on Chloe's shoulder. "You scared?" Chloe asked quietly. "Still," Sarah admitted, "but not of us. Just of how much this matters." "You think we'll make it?" "We already have." Chloe turned to face her. "Say it again." Sarah smiled, leaned in, and whispered, "I'm not sorry for loving you." Chloe blinked slowly. Her voice was barely audible. "I love you too. You know that, right? Yeah, even when I annoy you. Even when I take calls during dinner and leave my shoes in the hallway and ask you to rewrite the same line 3 times. Sarah kissed her. "Especially then? You still think I'm dangerous? Always? And I still want you anyway? Even now? Especially now, honey." Chloe exhaled like she was letting go of the last weight she didn't know she'd been carrying. They sat in the quiet for a while, just breathing, hearts beating in sync. No chaos, no tension, no need to hide. Just 2 women, 1 story, and everything they chose to build. A phone vibrated. A new project inquiry. Chloe reached for it, but Sarah caught her wrist. "Later," she said. "Let's just be here." Chloe nodded, settling back into her arms. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual noise. But in that moment, it felt far away, like another life they had already outgrown. Inside, there was warmth, laughter, the fading scent of paint, and love, not fragile, not forbiddance, just real, steady, chosen, built from a single mistake, a single word. Honey, if you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way,